Welcome to Soft Light Theory, where science turns into story and healing begins in the quiet. You've been walking with us through our series, Feeling Good, the New Mood Therapy by Dr. David D. Burns, exploring the secret architecture of the mind. In our last episode, The Secret Link Between Thoughts and Emotions, we uncovered how your inner dialogue shapes the way you feel, moment by moment. And tonight, we turn the page to something we all face but rarely master: criticism. Words can cut, glances can sting, and yet, hidden within them, lies a chance for strength. In this episode, Handling Criticism. Without stress, we'll slow down together, discovering how your brain reacts to judgment, why the sting feels so sharp, and how you can transform it into calm resilience. Before we begin, share with us, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Your words light up our map of gentle minds, connected across distance. This is your quiet moment. Breathe in, let your thoughts soften, and let the soft light guide you inward. Chapter 1. The First Sting of Words. The summary of this chapter: you hear something sharp, a comment, a glance, a tone, and your body reacts. Tonight, you explore the science of emotional triggers. You begin to notice how criticism touches old wounds. Let's begin where the sting begins. You lie still. The room is quiet, but somewhere inside, a sentence still echoes. It wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, but it pierced something soft in you, a place you didn't know was still tender. Maybe it was a comment, a glance, a tone. Maybe it was meant to help. Maybe it wasn't. But your body reacted. Your breath changed. Your chest tightened. Your thoughts began to race. This is the sting. The first flicker of discomfort. The moment when criticism touches something deeper. And tonight, you begin to understand it. Inside your brain, the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure, lights up like a flare. It's ancient, it's fast, it's protective. It doesn't wait for logic. It prepares you to defend, to retreat, to survive. You feel the sting, not because you are fragile, but because you are wired to care, to belong, to be safe in the eyes of others. Criticism, even gentle, can feel like exile. You remember a teacher's voice, a parent's sigh, a friend's silence. These memories live in your nervous system, not just your mind. They shape how you hear things now. They color the tone of today's comment. They decide whether it feels like feedback or like rejection. This is emotional memory. It's not a flaw. It's a map. And tonight, you begin to trace it. You notice how your breath changes when someone says, "You could have done better." You feel the heat rise when someone laughs at your idea. You sense the urge to explain, defend, disappear. These are not overreactions. They are echoes. Your body remembers what your mind forgets. And sometimes, the sting is not in the words, but in the wound they touch. Let's pause here. Let's breathe. Imagine your reaction as a ripple in water. A stone drops, a word, a glance, and the surface trembles. But beneath the ripple, the lake is still whole. You are still whole. The sting is a signal, not a sentence. It tells you where to look, not who you are. You begin to ask, what did this moment remind me of? Why did it hurt here and not there? What story did I tell myself when I heard those words? This is the beginning of emotional awareness. Not to silence the sting, but to understand it. You learn that criticism often triggers what psychologists call automatic thoughts. These are fast, silent beliefs that shape your feelings before you even notice. I'm not good enough. They don't respect me. I always mess things up. These thoughts are not facts. They are habits. And like any habit, they can be softened, reshaped, released. But first, you must hear them. So tonight, you listen. You listen to the voice inside that flinches when someone corrects you. You listen to the story that says, if they criticize me, I must be failing. You begin to ask, is that true? Is there another way to hear this? Can I separate the sting from the story? This is the quiet work of healing. It doesn't happen in arguments. It happens in moments like this, when the lights are low and your mind is soft enough to wonder. You learn that not all criticism is meant to harm. Some is clumsy, some is caring, some is simply misdirected. But your reaction is always real, and it deserves your attention. You begin to notice patterns, how certain voices trigger you more than others, how certain phrases feel heavier, how your body prepares to defend even when no attack is coming. This is your nervous system doing its job. It's trying to protect you. But sometimes it protects you from shadows. So you breathe again. You thank your body for its vigilance. You thank your mind for its sensitivity. And you begin to teach them something new. You begin to say, I am safe. I can hear this without losing myself. I am allowed to pause before I react. These are not affirmations. They are neural rewiring. Each gentle thought is a new path in your brain, a new way to respond, a new way to live. You learn that criticism is not a verdict. It's a moment, and moments pass. You begin to see yourself not as judged, but as growing. You begin to see criticism not as a threat, but as a mirror. And mirrors don't hurt, they reflect. You lie here now, not trying to fix anything, just noticing. Noticing the sting, noticing the story, noticing the space between them. This space is where healing begins. You begin to imagine a future where criticism feels like information, not injury, where you can hear without flinching, where you can respond without defending, where you can stay soft, even when the words are sharp. This is not a fantasy. It's neuroplasticity. Your brain can change, your reactions can soften, your story can evolve. And tonight, you've already begun. You've stepped into the quiet science of self-awareness. You've listened to the sting without letting it define you. You've asked gentle questions instead of rushing to conclusions. You've breathed, you've noticed, you've grown. And as your breath settles, you begin to wonder, what if your reaction isn't weakness, but reflection? In the quiet mirror of your mind, something stirs. That's where we'll go next. Chapter 2. The Mirror of Reaction. The summary of this chapter: your response is not weakness, it's reflection. You learn how your mind mirrors past experiences. This chapter gently explores emotional memory and feedback loops. You begin to see your reactions as echoes, not flaws. What if your defensiveness is just a misunderstood protector? You lie still. The night is quiet. But inside, something stirs. Not a thought, not a feeling, a reaction. It's subtle, a flicker, a tightening in the chest, a shift in breath, a quiet readiness to defend. You remember the moment. Someone said something, a comment, a correction, a glance, and your body responded, before your mind could explain, before your logic could intervene. This is the mirror of reaction, and tonight you begin to see it clearly. Your response is not weakness, it's reflection. It's your mind mirroring something older, something deeper, something learned. You begin to explore emotional memory, the way your brain stores experiences, not just as facts, but as feelings. You remember being told, "You're too sensitive." You always take things personally. Don't overreact. And so you learn to doubt your own response, to question your own sting, to hide your own hurt. But tonight, you listen, not to the critic, but to the echo. You begin to understand that your reaction is shaped by patterns, by feedback loops, by neural pathways that formed long ago. Let's look at the science. Your brain is a storyteller. It builds meaning from experience. It creates associations. It links tone to threat, expression to danger, correction to shame. These links are not flaws. They are survival tools. But sometimes they misfire. You hear a suggestion, and your brain hears rejection. You hear a pause, and your brain hears judgment. You hear a sigh, and your brain hears disappointment. This is the mirror. It reflects not just the moment, but the memory. You begin to ask gentle questions. What does this remind me of? Why does this tone feel familiar? What story is my mind replaying? You begin to notice your patterns, how certain voices trigger you, how certain words tighten your breath, how certain situations feel heavier than they should. This is not irrational. This is emotional conditioning. Your brain learned to protect you, to prepare you, to shield you. But sometimes, your protector becomes your prison. You react not to what was said, but to what you feared it meant. You defend not against the person, but against the past. You begin to see your defensiveness not as a flaw, but as a misunderstood protector. It rises to shield you, to keep you safe, to hold the line. But tonight, you begin to speak to it. You say, "Thank you for trying to protect me. I see you. I'm safe now." And your body responds. Your breath deepens. Your muscles soften. Your mind begins to trust you. You begin to create space between stimulus and response, between comment and reaction, between echo and choice. This space is sacred. It's where healing begins. It's where awareness lives. It's where you get to decide. You begin to practice reflection, not judgment, not suppression, just noticing. You say, "I felt hurt. I felt small. I felt unseen." And then you ask, "Is that about now? Or is that about before?" You begin to separate the moment from the memory. You begin to see the mirror not as a trap, but as a teacher. It shows you where you're tender, where you're healing, where you're growing. You begin to respond with curiosity, not defense, not retreat, just gentle inquiry. You say, "Can you tell me more? I want to understand. I'm listening." And your reaction shifts from reflex to reflection. You begin to rewrite your feedback loop, not with force, but with softness. You say, "I'm allowed to feel. I'm allowed to pause. I'm allowed to choose." And your brain responds. Neural pathways begin to change. Emotional memory begins to soften. The mirror begins to clear. You begin to see criticism not as a threat, but as a moment. Not as a verdict, but as a reflection. Not as a wound, but as a window. You lie still again. The night is quiet. Your breath is soft, and your mind is listening. You begin to wonder, if your reaction is a reflection, what is the shape of the criticism itself? That's where we'll go next, into the anatomy of critique, into the difference between harm and help, into the quiet art of decoding intention. And as your breath settles, you begin to ask, what lives inside the words themselves? In the next chapter, we'll explore the anatomy of criticism, the tone, the truth, the intention behind the sting. Chapter 3. The anatomy of criticism. The summary of this chapter. Not all criticism is the same. You explore the difference between helpful feedback and emotional attack. This chapter teaches you how to decode tone, intention, and truth. You begin to separate the message from the messenger. What if criticism is a puzzle? not a wound. You lie in the quiet again. The night wraps around you like a soft shawl. Your breath is slow. Your thoughts drift gently. And somewhere inside, a question begins to form. What is criticism really? You've felt its sting. You've heard its voice. You've watched it arrive in moments you didn't expect. Sometimes sharp, sometimes subtle, sometimes wrapped in kindness, sometimes cloaked in silence. But tonight, you begin to look closer, not at the pain, but at the structure. You begin to study the anatomy of criticism. Like a scientist, with a gentle touch, you peel back the layers. You observe the tone. You examine the intention. You search for the truth. Because not all criticism is the same. Some is meant to guide. Some is meant to wound. Some is clumsy. Some is cruel. Some is wise. Some is misdirected. And your body, your mind, your heart, they respond differently to each. You begin with tone. Tone is the texture of speech. It's the emotional fingerprint. It tells you more than the words themselves. A soft tone says, I care. A sharp tone says, I'm hurt. A cold tone says, I'm distant. A mocking tone says, I'm defending. You begin to listen not just to what is said, but how it's said. You notice the rhythm, the pauses, the emphasis, the breath behind the sentence. Tone is the first clue. Then you move to intention. Intention is the motive, the reason behind the words. It's what the speaker hopes to achieve. Some people criticize to help, to guide, to support your growth. Others criticize to control, to punish, to protect their own wounds. You begin to ask, what does this person want from me? What do they want from me? Is this about me or about them? You begin to see that intention is often hidden beneath emotion. Sometimes even the speaker doesn't know, but you can feel it in your body, in your breath, in your reaction. You begin to trust your inner compass. Then you explore truth. Truth is the core, the seed inside the shell. It's what remains when tone and intention are stripped away. Some criticism contains truth, a mirror, a reflection, a helpful nudge. Other criticism is distortion, projection, assumption, misunderstanding. You begin to ask, is this true for me? Does this resonate? Can I use this? You begin to separate the message from the messenger. You begin to hold the words without holding the wound. You begin to see criticism as a puzzle, not a punishment. Each piece, tone, intention, truth, offers information, insight, perspective, and you get to choose which pieces to keep. You begin to imagine criticism as a letter. Sometimes it's addressed to you. Sometimes it's misdelivered. Sometimes it's written in haste. Sometimes it's written in love. You don't have to read every letter. You don't have to believe every word. You don't have to respond to every message. You begin to create space between hearing and absorbing, between receiving and reacting. This space is your sanctuary. You begin to practice discernment, not defense, not denial, just gentle sorting. You say, this part feels true. This part feels off. This part I'll explore. And your mind begins to soften. Your body begins to trust. Your heart begins to open. You begin to see that helpful feedback feels different. It's grounded. It's specific. It's kind. It offers a path, not just a point. It invites reflection, not just reaction. It respects your dignity, even as it challenges your choices. You begin to welcome this kind of feedback. You begin to seek it. You begin to grow from it. But emotional attack, that's something else. It's vague. It's charged. It's personal. It's not about your actions. It's about your worth. And you begin to recognize it, to name it, to step back from it. You say, this is not mine to carry. This is not about me. This is someone else's pain. And your reaction shifts from defense to distance. You begin to protect your peace, not with walls, but with wisdom. You begin to respond with clarity, not silence, not surrender, just calm truth. You say, I hear you. I'll reflect on that. I'm choosing what to take in. And your nervous system responds. Your breath deepens. Your muscles soften. Your mind clears. You begin to rewrite your relationship with criticism, not as a battle, but as a conversation, not as a threat, but as a possibility, not as a wound, but as a window. You lie still again. The night holds you. Your thoughts settle. Your heart listens. And you begin to wonder, if criticism is a puzzle, what happens when you solve it? What happens when you respond not with fear, but with grace? That's where we'll go next, into the art of response, into the quiet power of choosing your words, into the gentle strength of speaking with clarity. And as your breath slows, you begin to ask, why does one small comment echo so loudly inside you? In the next chapter, we'll explore the quiet power of thought, how a single sentence can tighten your chest, and how gentle reframing can soften the feeling before it hardens the heart. Chapter 4. The Thought That Tightens. The summary of this chapter: a single thought can tighten your chest. You learn how cognitive distortions shape your response to critique. This chapter gently introduces reframing and emotional flexibility. You begin to soften the thought before it hardens the feeling. What if your worth isn't on trial every time someone speaks? You lie in the hush of night. The air is still. Your breath is slow. And somewhere inside, a thought begins to form. It's small, barely a whisper, but it tightens your chest. It curls around your ribs. It shifts the rhythm of your breath. You don't know where it came from. A comment, a glance, a memory, a moment, but now it's here. And it's loud, not in sound, but in sensation. This is the thought that tightens. And tonight, you begin to understand it. You begin to explore the quiet science of cognitive distortion. Your mind is a meaning maker. It takes fragments of experience and builds stories. It fills in gaps. It predicts. It protects. But sometimes it distorts. Not out of malice, not out of failure, but out of habit. You begin to notice the patterns. You hear a critique, and your mind says, I'm not good enough. You hear a pause, and your mind says, they're disappointed in me. You hear a suggestion, and your mind says, I've failed. These are distortions, not truths, not facts, just thoughts shaped by old fears. You begin to name them. All or nothing thinking, where one mistake means total failure. Mind reading, where you assume you know what others feel. Catastrophizing, where a small issue becomes a disaster. Personalization, where everything feels like your fault. You begin to see how these thoughts tighten your chest, speed your breath, blur your vision. They turn moments into judgments, comments into verdicts, feedback into shame. But tonight, you begin to soften them. You begin to practice reframing. Reframing is not denial. It's not pretending. It's not erasing. It's gentle adjustment. It's emotional flexibility. It's choosing a different lens. You hear the same comment, but now you ask, what else could this mean? You hear the same pause, but now you wonder, is this about me or about their day? You hear the same suggestion, but now you say, maybe they care. Reframing is a skill, a quiet art, a soft science. It begins with awareness. You notice the thought. You name the distortion. You breathe. Then you ask, is this thought helpful? Is it kind? Is it true? You begin to challenge the automatic, not with force, but with curiosity. You say, I made a mistake, but I'm learning. They didn't respond, but maybe they're tired. They gave feedback because they believe in me. And your body responds. Your chest loosens. Your breath deepens. Your mind clears. You begin to see that your worth is not on trial every time someone speaks. You begin to separate your value from your performance, from your perfection, from your reception. You begin to hold yourself with softness. You say, I am allowed to grow. I am allowed to be imperfect. I am allowed to receive feedback without collapsing. And your nervous system listens. It slows. It settles. It trusts. You begin to rewrite your internal dialogue, not with harshness, but with warmth. You say, I'm doing my best. I'm learning. I'm enough. And the thought that once tightened begins to loosen. You begin to notice the space between thought and feeling. You begin to see how a single sentence can shape your entire response. You begin to choose your sentences with care. You begin to speak to yourself like someone you love. You say, that was hard, but I'm proud of how I handled it. That stung, but I'm still standing. That surprised me, but I'm curious now. And your reaction shifts from defense to dialogue. You begin to build emotional flexibility. Flexibility is not weakness, it's strength, it's resilience, it's the ability to bend without breaking. You begin to respond to criticism, not with collapse, but with curiosity. You begin to ask, what can I learn? What do I want to keep? What do I want to release? You begin to trust yourself to sort through the message without losing your center. You begin to see that your thoughts are not fixed. They are fluid. They are changeable. And that means your feelings can soften too. You begin to imagine your mind as a garden. Thoughts are seeds. Some grow thorns. Some grow flowers. You begin to choose your seeds with care. You begin to water the ones that nourish you. You begin to pull the ones that choke your breath. You begin to tend to your inner world with kindness. And slowly, the thought that tightens becomes the thought that teaches. It shows you where you're tender, where you're healing, where you're growing. You lie still again. The night holds you. Your breath is soft. Your thoughts are gentle. And you begin to wonder, if your thoughts can change, what else can shift? What happens when your body begins to trust your mind? That's where we'll go next. Into the quiet science of the nervous system. Into the way your body responds to safety. Into the gentle art of calming from within. And as your breath slows, you begin to notice something quiet. The space between the sting of a thought and the shape of your response. In the next chapter, we'll explore that space more deeply. The pause where your nervous system listens, where breath becomes choice, and where stillness begins to speak. Chapter 5. The pause between words. The summary of this chapter. There is a space between hearing and reacting. You explore the neuroscience of emotional regulation. This chapter teaches you how to pause, breathe, and choose. You begin to find stillness in the storm. Can you feel the moment your reaction shifts? You lie in the quiet again. The night is soft. Your breath is slow. And somewhere inside, a moment begins to stretch. It's the moment after you hear something. A comment, a tone, a glance, a word. And before you respond, there is a pause. It's small, barely noticeable, but it holds everything. This is the pause between words. And tonight, you begin to explore it. You begin to understand the science of emotional regulation. Your brain is fast. It reacts in milliseconds. It scans for threat. It prepares for defense. It remembers pain. But your body is slower. It breathes. It waits. It listens. And between the two, there is a space. This space is your power. You begin to notice it, not in silence, but in sensation. Your chest tightens. Your breath shortens. Your muscles brace. But then, you pause. You don't speak. You don't defend. You don't retreat. You breathe. And in that breath, your nervous system begins to shift. You begin to explore the science. Your brain has two main systems. One reacts, one regulates. The first is fast. It's the amygdala. It scans for danger. It triggers emotion. It prepares you to fight or flee. The second is slower. It's the prefrontal cortex. It reflects. It reasons. It chooses. When you pause, you give the second system time to catch up. You give your body a chance to calm. You give your mind a chance to think. You give your heart a chance to feel. This is emotional regulation, not suppression, not denial, just gentle control. You begin to practice it. You hear a critique. Your body reacts. But you pause. You breathe. You name the feeling. You ask yourself, what do I want to do? And your response shifts. You begin to notice the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is automatic. It's fast. It's protective. Response is chosen. It's slow. It's intentional. You begin to choose. Not every time, not perfectly, but more often. You begin to build the habit of pausing. You begin to feel the storm without becoming it. You begin to find stillness inside the swirl. You begin to trust your breath. Breath is the bridge between body and mind. It's the signal that tells your nervous system you are safe. You begin to use it. You inhale slowly. You exhale gently. You count. You feel. And your body listens. Your heart rate slows. Your muscles soften. Your thoughts clear. You begin to regulate. Not to erase emotion, but to hold it gently. You begin to say, I feel hurt, but I'm okay. I feel surprised, but I'm listening. I feel defensive, but I'm choosing. And your reaction shifts. You begin to notice the pause in other people too. You begin to see their reactions as signals, not attacks. You begin to wonder, what are they feeling? What are they protecting? What do they need? And your empathy grows. You begin to respond not just with clarity, but with compassion. You begin to speak not just to defend, but to connect. You begin to use the pause as a place of reflection. You ask, what matters most right now? What do I want to say? What do I want to remember? And your words soften. You begin to build emotional resilience. Resilience is not resistance. It's flexibility. It's recovery. It's the ability to feel without falling. You begin to trust yourself to pause, to breathe, to choose. You begin to see that the pause is not empty. It's full. Full of possibility, full of choice, full of grace. You begin to imagine your reaction as a wave. It rises, it peaks, it falls. And in the pause, you float. You don't fight the wave. You don't drown in it. You ride it. You begin to feel the moment your reaction shifts. It's subtle. It's quiet. But it's real. You begin to notice the space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you find yourself. Not the reactive self. Not the fearful self. But the calm self. The clear self. The chosen self. You lie still again. The night holds you. Your breath is steady. Your thoughts are soft. And you begin to wonder, if you can pause before reacting, can you also pause before believing? Can you question the story your mind tells you in moments of pain? That's where we'll go next, into the quiet realm of self-talk, into the gentle art of rewriting your inner narrative, into the science of belief and identity. And as your breath settles, you begin to notice something else. Not just the pause before you speak, but the quiet strength it takes to truly hear. In the next chapter, we'll explore the art of listening without losing yourself, how presence becomes protection, and how clarity begins not with words, but with attention. Chapter 6. The Gentle Art of Listening. The summary of this chapter. Listening is not submission, it's strength. You learn how to receive feedback without losing yourself. This chapter explores active listening and emotional boundaries. You begin to hear with clarity, not fear. What if listening is a gift you give to yourself? You lie in the quiet again. The night is soft. Your breath is steady. And somewhere inside, a voice begins to speak. Not loud, not urgent, just present. It's the voice of another. A comment, a suggestion, a reflection, and you listen. But this time, you listen differently. You begin to explore the gentle art of listening. Listening is not passive. It's not surrender. It's not silence. It's presence. It's attention. It's strength. You begin to understand the science. Your brain is wired to react, to judge, to prepare a reply. But listening asks you to pause, to receive, to hold space. You begin to notice the difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is automatic. It's sound. It's surface. Listening is intentional. It's meaning. It's depth. You begin to practice active listening. You soften your breath. You quiet your thoughts. You open your attention. You begin to hear not just the words, but the emotion beneath them. You hear the tone, the rhythm, the pauses. You hear the feeling that lives inside the sentence. And you stay present. You don't interrupt. You don't defend. You don't drift. You listen. This is not submission. It's strength. It takes courage to stay open, to receive without reacting, to hear without collapsing. You begin to build emotional boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are edges. They are clarity. They are self-respect. You begin to listen with boundaries. You say, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm still me. You begin to separate the message from your identity. You begin to hear feedback without absorbing shame. You begin to hold your center even as you open your ears. You begin to trust yourself to sort through the words. You ask, is this helpful? Is this kind? Is this mine to carry? And your body responds. Your breath deepens. Your muscles soften. Your mind clears. You begin to listen not just to others, but to yourself. You hear your own reaction, your own story, your own truth. You begin to hold both voices with care. You say, I hear you, and I hear me. I'm open, and I'm grounded. I'm curious, and I'm clear. This is emotional maturity, the ability to receive without losing yourself. You begin to notice the layers of listening. You listen to the words. You listen to the tone. You listen to the intention. You listen to your response. Each layer offers insight. Each layer invites reflection. You begin to ask gentle questions. What are they really saying? What do they need? What do I feel? What do I want to do? And your listening deepens. You begin to imagine listening as a mirror. It reflects, it reveals, it clarifies. You begin to see that listening is a gift, not just to others, but to yourself. It slows your reaction. It expands your awareness. It strengthens your boundaries. You begin to listen with your whole body. Your breath stays soft. Your shoulders stay open. Your heart stays steady. You begin to feel safe inside the conversation. You begin to trust your ability to stay present. You begin to respond not with defense, but with discernment. You say, thank you for sharing. I'll reflect on that. Here's what I hear. And your words carry clarity. You begin to build relational resilience. Resilience is not resistance. It's flexibility. It's recovery. It's the ability to stay connected without losing yourself. You begin to listen even when it's hard. You begin to stay open even when it stings. You begin to hold space even when you disagree. And you begin to grow. You begin to see that listening is not about agreement. It's about understanding. You begin to hear the difference between critique and care, between control and curiosity, between attack and insight. You begin to choose what to take in. You begin to say, that part feels true. That part I'll explore. That part I'll release. And your listening becomes wise. You begin to imagine your ears as open hands. They receive, they sort, they release. You don't grip every word. You don't hold every sentence. You don't carry every tone. You listen, you learn, you let go, you lie still again. The night holds you. Your breath is soft. Your thoughts are clear. And you begin to wonder, if listening is a gift, how do you speak in return? How do you respond with truth and tenderness? That's where we'll go next. Into the quiet art of expression. Into the science of speaking with care. Into the gentle power of your own voice. And as your breath settles, you begin to ask, what if every harsh word hides a deeper ache? In the next chapter, we'll explore the story beneath the critique, how empathy disarms judgment, and how listening becomes a quiet act of courage. Chapter 7. The story beneath the critique. The summary of this chapter: every criticism carries a story. You explore the psychology of the critic, their fears, their needs. This chapter teaches you to hear what's not being said. You begin to respond with empathy, not defense. What if their words are more about them than about you? You lie in the quiet again. The night is still, your breath is soft, and somewhere inside, a memory begins to stir. A moment of critique, a sentence, a tone, a look. It lingered, it stung, it shaped your thoughts. But tonight, you begin to look deeper, not at the words, but at the story beneath them. You begin to explore the psychology of the critic. Every person who speaks carries a world inside them, a history, a fear, a need. And sometimes, their words are shaped more by that world than by yours. You begin to ask, what might they be feeling? What might they be protecting? What story lives behind their critique? You begin to listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. You begin to hear what's not being said. You hear the tension in their voice, the urgency in their tone, the hesitation in their breath. You begin to wonder, is this about me or about them? And your reaction softens. You begin to understand that criticism is often a mirror. It reflects the speaker's own fears, their own insecurities, their own longing. You begin to explore the science. Psychologists call it projection. When someone sees in you what they struggle to face in themselves, they criticize your confidence because they feel unsure. They question your choices because they fear regret. They challenge your voice because they haven't found theirs. You begin to see the pattern. Not to excuse, not to dismiss, but to understand. You begin to respond not with defense, but with empathy. Empathy is not agreement. It's not surrender. It's not silence. It's understanding. It's curiosity. It's grace. You begin to say, I hear you. I wonder what you're feeling. I'm listening. And your body responds. Your breath deepens. Your muscles soften. Your mind clears. You begin to hold space for both your truth and theirs. You begin to imagine the critic as a person in pain. Not always, not always consciously, but often. You begin to see their critique as a signal, a flare, a message. You begin to ask, what are they trying to say? What are they afraid of? What do they need? And your empathy grows. You begin to respond not with argument, but with insight. You say, it sounds like this matters to you. I hear some frustration. Can you tell me more? And the conversation shifts. You begin to build emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to feel your own emotions and understand others. It's the ability to stay grounded even when others are reactive. It's the ability to respond with clarity and care. You begin to trust yourself to hold your center even as you open your heart. You begin to see that empathy is not weakness, it's strength. It allows you to hear without absorbing, to understand without collapsing, to connect without losing yourself. You begin to imagine every critique as a story. Some stories are clear, some are tangled, some are old, some are fresh, but each one offers a glimpse into the speaker's world. You begin to listen with compassion. You begin to say, I wonder what shaped that view. I wonder what they've been through. I wonder what they're trying to protect. And your reaction shifts. You begin to see that not every critique needs a reply. Some need reflection. Some need silence. Some need kindness. You begin to choose your response with care. You begin to say, thank you for sharing. I'll think about that. I appreciate your perspective. And your words carry grace. You begin to build relational wisdom. Wisdom is not knowing everything. It's knowing what matters. It's knowing when to speak. It's knowing how to listen. You begin to see that every person is shaped by their own story. And sometimes their critique is a chapter from that story. You begin to hold your own story with tenderness. You begin to say, I know who I am. I know what I value. I know what I'm learning. And your sense of self strengthens. You begin to respond not from fear, but from truth. You begin to speak not to defend, but to connect. You begin to listen not to absorb, but to understand. You begin to imagine your heart as a quiet room. It has space. It has light. It has boundaries. You invite others in, but you don't let them rearrange the furniture. You lie still again. The night holds you. Your breath is soft. Your thoughts are gentle. And you begin to wonder, if every critique carries a story, what story do you carry when you speak? What happens when you become the one who gives feedback? That's where we'll go next, into the quiet ethics of expression, into the art of offering critique with care, into the science of speaking truth without harm. And as your breath settles, you begin to ask, what if the gentlest part of you is also the strongest? In the next chapter, we'll explore the strength of softness, how self-compassion reshapes your response to critique, and how kindness can cradle even the sharpest wound. Chapter 8. The Strength of Softness. The summary of this chapter: softness is not weakness, it's resilience. You begin to cradle your reactions with kindness. Affirmations become quiet anchors in the storm. Self-compassion rewires your response to critique. What if your gentleness is your greatest shield? You sit quietly, the echo of someone's words still lingering in your chest. They weren't kind, they weren't fair, and yet here you are, not reacting, but breathing. You've begun to learn that your softness is not a flaw to be hardened, but a strength to be honored. The world may teach you to toughen up, to build walls, to sharpen your edges, but tonight you choose something different. You choose to soften. Softness is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of resilience. It is the ability to feel deeply and still remain whole. Like water carving stone, softness moves with quiet persistence. It bends, but it does not break. And in this chapter, you begin to understand how self-compassion becomes your shield, not to block the world, but to cradle your own heart when it trembles. You begin with breath, a slow inhale, a gentle exhale. This is your first act of kindness. Neuroscience tells us that breath regulates the nervous system, calming the amygdala, the part of your brain that flares in fear or defense. With each breath, you signal safety to your body. You are not under attack. You are simply alive. Now, you turn inward. You notice the voice that rises when you feel criticized. Is it harsh? Is it familiar? Often, it echoes old patterns, words you heard long ago, perhaps from someone who didn't know how to be gentle. That voice may say, "You're not enough," or "You should have known better." But tonight, you meet that voice with a new one that says, "You're learning," and "It's okay to feel." This is the beginning of self-compassion, not as a concept, but as a practice. Psychologist Kristin Neff describes it as treating yourself the way you would treat a dear friend in pain. You begin to offer yourself the same warmth, the same patience, the same grace. You do not rush to fix. You simply stay. Affirmations become your quiet anchors, not loud declarations, but soft reminders. You whisper them, like lullabies, to your nervous system. I am safe. I am growing. I am allowed to feel. These words don't erase the sting of critique, but they cradle it. They remind you that your worth is not up for debate. You learn to ground yourself emotionally. When criticism comes, you pause. You feel your feet on the floor, your breath in your chest, your hands resting gently. You name what you feel: disappointment, sadness, confusion. Naming emotions activates the prefrontal cortex, helping you regulate rather than react. You become the observer, not the storm. And slowly, you begin to reframe critique, not as a threat, but as information. You ask, is there truth here I can use? Is there pain here I can understand? You do not absorb every word as gospel. You sift. You discern. You protect your softness by choosing what enters. This is emotional resilience, not the absence of pain, but the ability to hold it with grace. Studies show that self-compassion increases motivation, reduces anxiety, and strengthens relationships. It is not indulgence, it is wisdom. It is the quiet knowing that you are worthy, even when the world forgets. You begin to cradle your reactions with kindness. When you feel the sting, you do not lash out. You do not shut down. You breathe. You speak gently to yourself. You remind yourself that growth is not linear and healing is not weakness. You become your own safe space. Softness becomes your shield, not to hide behind, but to move through the world with integrity. You do not need to be hard to be strong. You do not need to be loud to be heard. Your softness is your clarity. Your softness is your courage. Your softness is your truth. And as you lie here, listening to the quiet rhythm of your breath, you begin to feel it, the strength that comes not from armor, but from openness. You are not fragile. You are fluid. You are not broken. You are becoming. You remember the lotus, a flower that blooms in muddy water. Its petals are delicate, but its roots are deep. It does not resist the mud. It rises through it. You too are rising, not in spite of your softness, but because of it. You begin to trust your inner voice, the one that says, I am enough, the one that says, I can be kind and still be clear. The one that says, I do not need to harden to survive. This voice is not loud. It is steady. It is yours. And in moments of doubt, you return to your breath. You return to your body. You return to the quiet truth that you are allowed to be soft. You are allowed to be whole. You are allowed to be you. Tonight, you rest in that knowing. You let it wrap around you like a warm blanket. You let it settle into your bones. You let it become your rhythm. Because softness is not weakness. It is the strength to feel, the strength to stay, the strength to rise. And as your breath settles, you begin to ask, what if the way you see yourself is not fixed, but fluid? Criticism doesn't define you. You explore how to separate feedback from self-worth. Next chapter teaches you to rewrite your inner narrative. You begin to see yourself as evolving, not evaluated. What if your identity is a story you get to write? Chapter 9, The Reframe of Identity. The summary of this chapter: criticism doesn't define you. You begin to separate feedback from self-worth. Your inner story starts to shift, from judgment to growth. This chapter teaches you to rewrite your narrative with care. What if your identity is a story you get to write? You lie still, the weight of someone's words pressing gently against your chest. Not loud, not recent, but lingering. A comment, a glance, a moment that made you question who you are. You've carried it like a stone in your pocket, small but heavy. Tonight, you begin to set it down. Criticism can feel like a mirror, but often it's a distorted one. It reflects not just your actions, but someone else's lens, their expectations, their mood, their history. And yet, you've looked into that mirror and wondered, is this who I am? You've let feedback shape your sense of self. But now, you begin to ask a different question. What if I get to choose the reflection? Your identity is not a fixed sculpture carved by others. It is a living story, written in moments, revised in breath. Neuroscience shows that the brain is not static. It rewires, it adapts, it learns. This is neuroplasticity, and your sense of self is part of that dance. You are not evaluated. You are evolving. You begin by noticing the voice inside, the one that rises when you're criticized. Is it harsh? Is it familiar? Often, it echoes old scripts, things you were told, things you believed, things you never questioned. You're too much. You're not enough. You always mess up. These phrases become internal architecture. But tonight, you begin to renovate. You ask, is this voice mine? You trace its origin, a teacher's tone, a parent's sigh, a friend's silence. You realize that some of these voices were never yours to begin with. They were borrowed, inherited, absorbed, and now you begin to return them. You do not erase your past. You honor it, but you choose which parts to carry forward. You begin to write new lines. I am learning. I am allowed to grow. I am not defined by one moment. These words are not decoration. They are foundation. This is the reframe. Not denial, but redirection. You take feedback and hold it gently. You ask, is there truth here I can use? Is there pain here I can understand? You separate the message from your worth. You become the editor of your own story. Psychologists call this self-distancing. It's the ability to observe your thoughts without becoming them. When you say, I feel like a failure, you shift to, I notice I'm having the thought that I failed. This subtle change activates the prefrontal cortex, helping you regulate emotion and regain perspective. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. You begin to see yourself as a process, not a product. Like a tree growing toward light, you bend, you stretch, you shed old leaves. You are not stuck, you are seasonal. And every season brings new color. You remember the caterpillar. It does not resist the cocoon. It dissolves. It becomes unrecognizable. And then it emerges, not as a better caterpillar, but as something entirely new. You too are allowed to transform. You start to rewrite your inner narrative, not with grand declarations, but with gentle truths. I am more than this moment. I am allowed to change. I am worthy of kindness. These phrases become your compass. They guide you through the fog of doubt. You begin to notice how identity is shaped not just by what you believe, but by what you repeat. The brain builds pathways through repetition. Each time you choose a kinder thought, you strengthen that path. You are not just thinking differently, you are becoming different. You reflect on past versions of yourself, the child who tried so hard to please, the teen who hid their feelings, the adult who questioned their worth. You do not judge them. You thank them. They survived. They adapted. They brought you here. And now you begin to choose. You choose which stories to keep. You choose which roles to release. You choose which truths to live by. This is not selfish. It is sacred. It is the act of reclaiming your name. You begin to see that identity is not a label, but a landscape. It has valleys and peaks, shadows and light. You are not one thing. You are many, and all of them are real. You learn to hold feedback with curiosity, not fear. You ask, does this help me grow? Does this reflect who I want to be? If yes, you integrate. If no, you release. You do not need to defend. You simply decide. This is emotional maturity, not perfection, but presence. You stay with yourself. You listen. You adjust. You evolve. You begin to trust your own voice. The one that says, I am enough. The one that says, I am allowed to change my mind. The one that says, I am not finished. This voice is not loud. It is steady. It is yours. And in moments of doubt, you return to your breath. You return to your body. You return to the quiet truth that you are allowed to grow. You are allowed to be soft. You are allowed to be whole. Tonight, you rest in that knowing. You let it settle into your bones. You let it become your rhythm. Because identity is not a verdict. It is a voyage. And as your breath settles, you begin to ask, what thought will you carry into sleep tonight? Some thoughts soothe the sting. You learn to choose healing thoughts with intention. This closing chapter invites you to rest in emotional clarity. You begin to carry calm into your dreams. What thought will you carry into sleep tonight? Chapter 10. The Thought That Heals. The summary of this final chapter of this episode. Some thoughts soothe the sting. You begin to choose healing thoughts with intention. This chapter invites you to rest in emotional clarity. You learn to carry calm into your dreams. What thought will you carry into sleep tonight? You lie beneath the quiet sky of your own mind. The day has folded itself into memory. And now, in the hush between wakefulness and sleep, you begin to notice the thoughts that linger. Some are soft, some are sharp, some are simply echoes. And tonight, you choose which ones to carry forward. Not every thought deserves a place in your dreams. Some arrive uninvited, shaped by fear, by habit, by someone else's voice. But you are learning that thoughts are not commands. They are clouds. They pass. And you, the sky, remain. This chapter is about choosing, not forcefully, but gently. It's about noticing which thoughts soothe the sting and which ones deepen it. It's about intention, the quiet art of guiding your mind toward healing. You begin with breath, always breath. A slow inhale, a longer exhale. This rhythm calms the nervous system, signaling safety to your body. The parasympathetic branch of your nervous system begins to rise, the part responsible for rest, for digestion, for repair. You are not in danger. You are in transition. Now, you turn inward. You notice a thought. I didn't do enough today. It feels familiar. It carries tension. But instead of resisting it, you observe it. You name it. You say, this is a thought of inadequacy. And in naming it, you create space. This is called labeling. Neuroscience shows that when you name an emotion or thought, activity shifts from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. You move from reaction to reflection. You become the witness, not the prisoner. You ask, is this thought helping me heal? If not, you let it go. Not by pushing it away, but by offering it something softer. You say, I did what I could. You say, I am allowed to rest. You say, I am enough for tonight. These are healing thoughts, not fantasies, not denial, but gentle truths that cradle your nervous system. They are like warm blankets for the mind, soft, steady, grounding. You begin to understand that thoughts shape biology. Repeated negative thoughts increase cortisol, the stress hormone. But healing thoughts, thoughts of safety, compassion, gratitude, activate oxytocin and serotonin. These chemicals soothe the body, repair the heart, and prepare the brain for sleep. You choose a thought. I am safe. You repeat it slowly. You feel its rhythm. You let it settle into your breath. This thought becomes a lullaby. It becomes a bridge between wakefulness and rest. You remember that the brain is plastic. It rewires through repetition. Each time you choose a healing thought, you strengthen that neural path. You are not just calming yourself tonight. You are building a future of calm. You begin to notice the difference between thoughts that spiral and thoughts that settle. Spiral thoughts ask, what if? Why didn't I? What will they think? Settling thoughts say, I am here. I am breathing. I am allowed to let go. You choose settling thoughts, not because you're avoiding reality, but because you're honoring your need for rest. Healing does not happen in chaos. It happens in quiet. You reflect on the day. You do not judge it. You do not dissect it. You simply thank it. You say, thank you for what you taught me. You say, thank you for what I survived. You say, thank you for bringing me here. Gratitude is a healing thought. It shifts focus from lack to presence. Studies show that gratitude improves sleep, reduces anxiety, and strengthens emotional resilience. You do not need to list everything. You simply feel the warmth of one small thank you. You begin to trust your ability to choose. You are not at the mercy of your mind. You are its guide. You are its gardener. You decide which thoughts to water and which ones to let dry. You choose a thought. I am becoming. It holds no pressure, no deadline, just motion, just grace. You let it echo through your body. You let it become your rhythm. You remember the moon. It waxes. It wanes. It never rushes. It never apologizes. It simply reflects light when it can and rests in shadow when it must. You too are allowed to be in phases. You choose a thought. I am allowed to rest. You feel its permission. You feel its kindness. You feel its truth. You begin to notice how thoughts shape dreams. What you carry into sleep becomes the soil of your subconscious. You choose thoughts that plant peace. You choose thoughts that bloom in silence. You choose a thought. I am loved. Even if no one said it today, even if you forgot to feel it, you say it now. You let it wrap around you. You let it become your blanket. You begin to understand that healing is not a destination. It is a direction. And tonight, your thoughts point gently toward it. You choose a thought. I am whole. Not perfect, not finished, but whole. You let it settle into your breath. You let it become your lullaby. So, this is the close of tonight's episode. Thank you for sharing this quiet journey with me. If this story brought you even a little peace, I invite you to subscribe to Soft Light Theory, a place devoted to gentle science, emotional clarity, and the kind of calm that lingers long after the words fade. May your dreams be soft, your thoughts be kind, and may your heart return here whenever it needs rest. Good night, and I'll be back soon with another story.